life is divided into three major cell lineages: bacteria, archaea, or eukarya, or what we call domains. And we place organisms into these domains based off of their sequence. So, what is in their genetic sequence? And in particular, we look at 16S or 18S, depends whether we're looking at prokaryotes or eukaryotes, ribosomal DNA sequence. We use that because all organisms need that ribosome sequence because those ribosomes contribute to the translation of proteins. So using these sequences, we then are able to separate them into their domains and then into their phyla in those domains and their kingdoms if we're talking about the eukarya. Now, bacteria and archaea are prokaryotes, eukarya are eukaryotes. Bacteria are very diverse in appearance, size, and function. Archaea are too. We just don't know as much about archaea. Historically, they've been associated with extreme environments, but not all are extremophiles, but they're harder to study. We'll get into that a little bit later this semester. Eukarya include obviously the animals, the fungi, and the plants. And these first came around from the evolutionary burst known as the Cambrian explosion. Began about 600 million years ago, and the first of these domains were unicellular, i.e. one single cell that was capable of all functionality. But now, of course, there are many multicellular species. Now, I want to track back to this organism right here. This is referred to as Leuca, and Leuca was the last universal cellular ancestor. So this is thought to be the root of all three domains, but it's important to note that we don't know a lot of information about it. We don't think it was the first living cell, but we think it was the first living cell that served as an ancestor for all modern species. And the last thing to note is there are no viruses here because we're still arguing whether viruses are actually alive or not alive. Most of us believe that they're not alive, but there are some exceptions to that rule. So for now, for this class, we're going to consider that viruses do not belong on the domains of life, that they are not living, and that they are oligoparasites. So once these organisms have been sequenced and put into domains, they get them further classified. And you've heard about this from Bio 1 before, where they get classified on phylum, class, order, family, etc. What we're really concerned about in microbiology is genus and species, and a little bit about strains and serotypes, and I'll get back to those here in a moment. So let's kind of go through here. We're going to look at Shigella, which is the example they've given us here. Shigella is the causative agent of human shigellosis. That results in dysentery, which is a gut inflammatory problem whereby they have a lot of diarrhea. It's one of the top 4 pathogens that causes moderate to severe diarrhea in African and South Asian children. Now, what I want you to take away from this predominantly is how it's written. So in the genus, we capitalize the first letter, and then the rest of the name and that first letter is always in italics. Now, if you can't do italics because you're handwriting, you should then instead underline this word instead. Okay, so italics if you're typing it, underline if you are handwriting it. Now, Shigella has several species, but we're giving this one here, Shigella flexnerii. You'll notice that this still is in italics. That's important, but now we're in lowercase. And then we have abbreviated this Shigella, the genus name, just to S with that period. Now, these can be further classified because Shigella flexnerii has several strains, and strains are genetic differences, and they can differ biochemically, morphologically, and pathogenetically, which means how they cause disease. It also has several serotypes, which are surface differences, and that refers really to the different types of antibodies that are raised against this bacterium and helps us in diagnosis and identification of those organisms. So as a summary, we always italicize the names. The genus is always capitalized. The species is not. If you cannot italicize, you should underline them. And I expect to see these names noted correctly in your writing application.